Hey guys, it has been so long since I have done a sit down video. I think the last one I did might have been my son's birth story, and he's almost 8 months old now. But I have just gotten out of a really long reading slump, and all I've been doing during my spare time is reading. So I thought that it would be fun to do like a what I read in July type of video, and I'll kind of give you a quick synopsis and my review of all the books that I read. There were some really good ones. So the first book I read this month is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. I have read several books by her. This was by far my favorite book by her that I have read. The synopsis is that it's basically about these two women. One woman who has just kind of a mysterious life that you don't really find out a lot about. First, you find out that her husband is much older than her, and her relationship with her daughter is a little mysterious, her daughters, and this other woman who is a podcaster, she seems to have the perfect life, her life is all together. They find out that they are birthday twins. They were born on the exact same day, same year, in the same hospital, and everything. And the story just unfolds from there. I really don't want to give a whole lot more information away because I don't want to spoil anything. But it's just so interesting. I like how Lisa Jewell, just as the story goes on, she sprinkles in like a little bit more of the backstory, especially for the mysterious woman. Her name is Josie, and you just hear like little bits of her backstory as you go. And it gets just a little weirder, a little more disturbing as you go. And like, it was a real page turner because you're just like, okay, something's off here and you don't know exactly what it is. And it's a really good reveal. I gave this one 4 stars. I really liked it up until the very last chapter. I feel like everyone will probably either love or hate this last chapter. And it is, if I remember right, it's a little ambiguous too. If it weren't for that last chapter, I think it would have been 5 stars, but I didn't love what they did in the last chapter. There's a fly in here. I don't love what they did in that last chapter. So if you've read it, please let me know what you thought of the ending of that last chapter. If you have not read it yet, I 100% recommend it. This is the book that got me out of like a 6-month reading slump. So highly recommend it, especially if you like thrillers. Like I said, I think I haven't read all of Lisa Jewell's book, but this was definitely the best book of hers that I have read. So we started the month off strong. The next book I read is the only physical book that I have here today that I read this month. That is Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. Riley Sager is my favorite author. If you've watched any of my vlogs, I've talked about that lately and in the past. I love his book, The Last Time I Lied. That is about a summer camp. I'm sorry, this fly is really distracting me, but that is about a summer camp, and it's perfect to read in the summer, so now would be a great time to read that one. Lock Every Door is another one of his that is one of my favorites. Those two I think are the top 2 for me. I know there's so many different, I feel like everybody that likes Riley Sager likes most of his books. What's that one called? Survive the Night was not my favorite. That was the only one he's ever put out that I didn't really like. This one is about this man named Ethan, and he grew up in this little like cul-de-sac. It was a really close-knit neighborhood. And his best friend Billy lived there too. And they had, when they were 10 in 1994, which is funny because I was 10 in 1994, so I'm the same age as the main character, which means I'm getting old, but anyway, they had a sleepover out in a tent in Ethan's backyard when they were 10 years old, and something happened. Somebody split the tent, cut the tent with a knife, and Billy was never seen again. So nobody knows what has happened. So this is the story of when Ethan is now 40, he comes back to the town, kind of takes over his parents' house as they have moved away. A lot of the same people still live in this little cul-de-sac, and it's kind of him revisiting that time and trying to find out what really happened. So in classic Riley Sager style, there is a twist. Some of his books, I think he goes a little too far with the twist, like, what was the one that came out last year? The Only One Left. I thought that one was really good till the end, and then it was like, okay, too many twists. You went too far with it. This one I thought was okay. It was like, it was a pretty believable twist, but it was kind of like, oh, that's it. That's kind of my thought. And I feel like the beginning of this was so slow. It took me so long to get into it. I really wasn't into it till like probably the last third of it. And then, like I said, the twist was kind of like, okay, it's fine. But it wasn't like Lock Every Door, where it's like you find out that twist and you're like, oh my gosh, this book is completely different than what I thought it was. It wasn't that mind-blowing, but it wasn't over the top either. So I think this one was okay. I gave it 3 stars. I would say it's one of my least favorite Riley Sager books, but still enjoyable. I would still read it. I recommend it, especially if you like thrillers that are like really atmospheric. That's kind of Riley Sager's thing. Atmospheric stories that really build up the setting and twists. So this one wasn't bad. I didn't hate it, didn't love it, kind of middle of the road. Probably my least favorite one this month though, surprisingly. Okay, so after those 2 thrillers, I needed kind of a palate cleanser. That's kind of what I do. I get in the mood for thrillers and then I kind of burn myself out on them, and then I have to read something from a different genre. So what I decided to read next was The Women by Kristin Hannah. It is a historical fiction, and that is what she mostly writes. I've read a few others by her. I've read Winter Garden, The Nightingale, The Great Alone, The Four Winds, which I didn't love that one, but I kind of have figured out the first couple of books by her. I just was in love with. I loved them so much. I love how it kind of tells a historical story about some event in the past, but it kind of puts you in the perspective of someone who actually lived through that. But here's the thing about Kristin Hannah. I love her, but I have a small gripe about her. Like, I feel like what she does is she takes the main character, puts them in this historical event. She does all this research about every bad thing that ever happened to anyone during that historical event, and then she throws it all on that one main character. And it's like, you know, her books are going to be sad, depressing, like over the top. Just they all make me cry, like at multiple points. And the first couple of books, I didn't realize that was kind of her thing. And I'm like, okay, this is such a good book. It's so emotional. But now I'm like, can you cut the main character a break? Like, does every bad thing have to happen to that main character? Not to give any spoilers or anything. But anyway, that's kind of a rant. But this book, The Women, it was still really good. I'll tell you right now, I gave it 4 stars. I took off 1 star because I'm tired of her doing the same thing all the time. Maybe she has other books where she doesn't do that, but all the books I've read are kind of like that. And I'm just like, can we give us like a twist of something good happening to our main character for once? But anyway, I really liked this story, especially the first half. So The Women is about this woman named Frankie, and she becomes a nurse. It is during the Vietnam War. And she starts working at this hospital, and she's kind of feeling like they're not letting her do anything. Because she's not very experienced, she feels like she's not really making a difference, and she decides she wants to go be a nurse in Vietnam during the Vietnam War. So she does that, and the first half of the book is kind of her, well, I don't even want to say because that's kind of a spoiler, but I'll be very vague about it. It is about her going over to Vietnam and being a nurse there and all of the different things that she encounters. And I loved the first half of this story. I don't even want to say what the first half and the second half are about because, like I said, it could be a mild spoiler. If you've read it, you'll have to let me know what you thought. But I thought the first half was really good. I was really, really into it, couldn't stop reading. And then the second half just wasn't quite as interesting to me. It just felt like it kind of dragged on a little bit longer than I thought it needed to, which is another reason I took off that 1 star. But overall, I really liked it. kind of your classic run-of-the-mill Kristin Hannah book. But if you're interested in the Vietnam War, or if you lived through that time, it might be super interesting to you. Again, I'm being nitpicky. It wasn't perfect, but I really enjoyed it. Would totally recommend it, and I gave it 4 stars. Okay, and then actually the rest of the month I didn't read any more thrillers, which is not like me, but I have 2 more books. The next one is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. That's how I've heard other people pronounce it. But anyway, this is my first book of hers that I've ever read. And I have such a love-hate relationship with a lot of romance novels. I like books that are just sweet and cute. I don't like a lot of spice in my romance novels. I don't like it when they're super cheesy. I absolutely hate Colleen Hoover novels. Not my type of not chick flick. Not my type of romance book that I like. So I haven't had good luck lately. I feel like I like a few of Christina Lauren's books. I think they have some cute ones. They have last one I read by them I didn't really like very much, but anyway, this was my first Abby Jimenez book, and so I was kind of like, all right, I'll try it out and see, because I've heard good things about her, but I don't always love romance books. And oh my gosh, I loved it. I read it in 3 days. Would have read it faster if I didn't have to, parent my children and run my business and things like that. But yeah, I really, really liked it. So it's about this woman she's a doctor, she's very successful, she works in this city, and ends up running into this country boy. He's a lot younger than her. He lives in the country, this tiny, tiny town, and he runs this bed and breakfast. They end up meeting up and kind of start dating and falling for each other, but they're both from 2 different worlds, and it's the story of kind of how they make it all work. Did I see the ending coming a mile away? Absolutely. I knew what was going to happen, probably from halfway through the book on, but it's kind of like a Hallmark movie. You know what you're in for, you know what's going to happen, but it's kind of the journey getting there with those cozy vibes and all of the the chemistry between the 2 characters. I just could not put it down. It was I loved it for all of the reasons that I used to love, the chick flicks of the early 2000s, late 90s, when chick flicks were still good and still a thing. So I have every single book. As soon as I read that book, I put every book she's ever written on hold from my library. So I'm really excited to get into more of her books. There are 2 more books in this series. I cannot remember the names of them. I will put them up on the screen. But I believe they can work as standalone books, but they also kind of go together. They're in the same universe, They have some of the same characters. So I'm really excited to read the rest of this series and all the other books she's written. I loved it so much. There wasn't too much spice, just a little bit. Nothing that just made me totally cringe like Colleen Hoover. So yeah, I loved it. If you have not tried that author out, I highly recommend her if you love Hallmark movies or chick flicks or things like that, where you know what you're in for. You can predict the ending, but it's still totally enjoyable. So I actually gave that one 5 stars, which was my first 5-star book in a long time. For my last book of the month, I finally read ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses. So this is a fantasy or romantasy book, which is not my genre. I love to read thrillers. That's my favorite, thrillers and mysteries. Romance, like I said, I enjoy. They're often hit or miss, but I enjoy trying them out. I like to dabble in historical fiction. I love memoirs. Fantasy and sci-fi are probably my lowest genres, but this is such a popular series, and I know it's been around forever, but I was finally you know what? I'm going to try it out. I'm going to see if I like this book. So it is about a girl named Farah. She is 19 years old, and she's her family is living in poverty. She's having to fight to survive, and she ends up accidentally killing this fairy, which it's not fairy like F-A-I-R-Y. They're fairies as in like magical creatures, but like some of them are evil. I'm new to the fantasy genre. I don't know. This is all new to me, but she accidentally kills one. So later that night, this big, strong, scary fairy comes and tells her that it's basically a life for life. He can either kill her or he can take her as his, I don't even know, captor, I don't know, take her to like the fairy realm, the fairy land, and she can live with him forever, kind of to pay for the life that she took of his friend. So that's what she ends up doing. I won't give any more of a spoiler than that. It is a popular retelling, or it is a retelling of a popular fairy tale. I'm not going to say which one because somebody told me before I started reading it, and I was kind of bummed that I didn't come upon that info on my own while I was reading it. But anyway, I will say I'm not going to like jump into the fantasy genre head first now. It didn't like win me over to that. But I did kind of get invested in the characters and the story and the world. So I've heard that, you know, the first book is a lot of world building, and I've heard that the ones later in the series are better, more interesting. The first like 2/3 of the book, I was like, all right, I'm bored. Like, I am not that invested in any of these characters. I kind of like Lucian. He was like the only character that I care for. Didn't really like Feyre, didn't really like Tamlin, who was like the main High Lord fairy. I don't know, like I said, I don't really know what I'm talking about still, but didn't love the main characters. But the last third of the book, it gets so action-packed. It's like so many things are happening right after the other, and I've heard that that's kind of like a signature of Sarah J. Maas. She does that a lot, apparently. I don't know, that's what my friend told me anyway. And that last third of the book I was so into it. I read it like all in one night because I couldn't stop reading. So the end of the book won me over to it. I gave it 4 stars. And I am now, hold on, I will show you. My really good friend has read the entire series, and she said after she read the first book, she bought the whole series because she said she was so invested she had to read them all. So this is probably what my August reading list is going to look like if I do another book or another video like this in August. But yes, she lent them all to me. So I did like it enough that I think I want to read the series. So I guess we're invested now. I started it yesterday. They are thick. They are some big books. So like 600, 700 pages. So yeah, I guess I'm in for the long haul here, but I'm liking it. I'm really excited to see where things go, what all is going to happen in Feyre's story. So stay tuned, and I will be sure to share all of my thoughts in a future vlog. But yeah, I feel like I have like a really big assignment to complete, but hopefully it'll be good. So as I am recording this video, we still have a few days left in July. I would not be surprised if I finish one more book, but if I continue to read a lot, I might make another one of these in August or in the future. So I will share more then. But right now I am currently reading, like I said, A Court of Mist and Fury, which is the second book in the ACOTAR series. Not much has happened yet. I'm on page 42. So not many thoughts yet, but I've heard this one's really good. So I'll let you know later. But I am also reading Funny Story by Emily Henry on my Kindle. I like to read. I have a physical book often that I'm reading, but I have 2 small children. I have an 8-month-old and, well, I have 3 children, but 2 of them are small. I have an 8-month-old and a 2-year-old. The 8-month-old needs fed all the time and rocked to sleep all the time. The 2-year-old still needs rocked to sleep at nap time and bedtime. So that gives me a lot of time to read in the dark. So that's why I always have a Kindle book too, because I can read my Kindle book in the dark, but I can only read my physical book like out where it's light. So anyway, so I'm usually reading 2 books at once. So right now, the other book that I'm reading is Funny Story by Emily Henry. I've read 2 other books by her. I liked them. They weren't like my favorite. This one though is so good. I'll share more about it next month, but I think I'm about 40. I started it 2 days ago. I think I'm like 45% of the way through it. And it is so cute. I'm loving it so much. It's kind of like a fake dating story, which I like those a lot. Like, what's that one book? To All the Boys I've Loved Before. That's a fake dating story too, and so cute. But anyway, that's besides the point. Really loving that one. So I will share more about that next month. So this was kind of fun. I love sharing the books that I'm reading. I love recommending books for people. So I might make some more videos like this soon. So if you have read any of the books I talked about, please comment below. I love talking about books. And I often don't have a lot of people in my real life to talk about them with. That was a terrible sentence, but anyway. So I would love to discuss any of these books in the comments below. If your opinion was different than mine, then more power to you. I know we're all different. We all have different opinions and different things that we like, but I would love to hear your thoughts. So thank you guys so much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this one, don't forget to subscribe.